Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be my look at this month in Dragalia Lost for the month of January 2021. This is where the game's director, Okada, talks to us about what's to come for the month ahead in Dragalia Lost, and also often teases things about the game's future as a whole. So we're going to look through all of this today, and I'll share my thoughts and opinions on everything, but of course, to start things off, I have to say, Happy New Year, everyone! I hope your 2021 is off to a good start so far, and that you have great days ahead in the year to come. I know I've felt very fortunate right now to be healthy, be happy, be here able to make YouTube videos about Dragalia Lost, so I want to express my gratitude and also just say thanks for sticking with me another year. It's been a crazy past year, and hopefully we're turning the corner to better days ahead. So let's get into this month in Dragalia Lost. Of course, director Okada also starts off by thanking us for playing Dragalia Lost and for the goings-on of the past year. He acknowledges that 2020 was a year of tectonic shifts and great struggle for many of us around the world, and the Dragalia Lost team also dealt with many struggles of their own. But they have and will continue to work on developing the game while ensuring they maintain the health and safety of everyone involved. Likewise, Okada speaks for all of them when he says that it is their sincere wish that our players stay happy and healthy into the new year and beyond. That is my hope for all of you as well. We have promising solutions on the horizon, but you gotta stay vigilant and gotta stay healthy until that time and keep those around you safe and healthy as well. So, pretty difficult time we've gone through this past year for sure. I know everybody has personal stories to vouch for how tough this past year was. And so I just want to say, you've made it to this point and hang in there and make it a little bit further. With that said, I'd like to bring the focus back to Cursed Connections, the New Year's Raid event that is currently live. You can recruit the adventurer Kuzunoha to your roster if you complete enough event quests to forge a lasting friendship with her. As you may notice playing through this event, this year's story shines a light on a more serious side of the Hinamatoan affairs, much more so than last year's event and the one before that. Something tells me this isn't the last we'll see of the mysterious Mukurushu. And we have our lovely Cursed Connections picture here with our corrupted, I'm not sure if it's what it's called actually, what his boss name is, but our corrupted Gozu Tenno, and then we have Kuzunoha here. Very popular characters this new year. I think they really hit out of the park with all the character designs, with possibly the exception of Yoshitsune, because people seem to really like the older variant and didn't feel like she needed the trope of becoming young in battle. And I agree, she didn't really need it. Her older design was really strong, but I'm sure for some players they'll like the younger one, and it'll be popular for the banner. I wish you had a choice of which one you wanted to use, but that might be a little more complicated than Dragalia dev team is able to implement. But otherwise, people want to summon Doman, people want to summon Seimei, of course that's possible, and Gozu Tenno also has been very popular as this sort of burly and buff, powerful dragon. For me, if I had to rank the characters this year, looking at some more of their portraits obviously down here, honestly, I really like Seimei the most, and then I would probably have to go with Kuzunoha, followed by Doman, and then probably Yoshitsune. I'm going to count the older and the younger kind of together, but the older obviously a little bit better rank. For me, Gozu Tenno, the lowest of the bunch. Not to say he's low, he's a great character, love him, but just all of them have been heavy hitters this year, so it's really hard to decide. Speaking of Hinamoto, Seimei and Gozu Tenno, members of the 12 Worm Clans, appear in the Cursed Connections Part 1 Summon Showcase that is currently live. At first glance, Seimei may appear to care little for his allies, but as you play through the Raid event story, you'll find just the opposite to be true. I hope you enjoy learning more about the relationship between Seimei and Gozu Tenno in particular. So, if you haven't read the adventure story for Seimei, and you summoned him, I definitely suggest you read it. For some of you out there who aren't going to be able to summon him, you may want to read it over on the wiki. The stories are generally all available there, and that is a good place to check out more about the lore about Dragalia Lost if you're interested. But the story is very significant in my opinion, in the development of Seimei. You find out the nature of Gozu Tenno and something about Seimei's past that is pretty cool. You also find out more about the marvelous Naoto. So yeah, I think that it's a pretty cool story, but as for Seimei and Gozu Tenno, we'll see just how they sort of formed a pact together later on in the event, I suppose. A daily free tenfold summon event is currently live as well. The arrival of the new year is a cause for celebration, and we're ringing it in with a variety of beneficial events like login bonuses and the Lucky Letters raffle. So I got 4th prize a couple of times in the raffle and then collected my bonuses, of course. Nothing exceptional, but it was still like over 20 single summon tickets, which felt pretty good. Be sure to take full advantage of these events by logging in every day. There will also be a second daily free tenfold summon event that will allow you to perform a tenfold summon on the Cursed Connections Part 2 showcase for free once per day for 3 days. This showcase will feature another member of the 12 Worm Clan's Yoshitsune. Further information on this adventure, including her element and weapon, is available in the in-game notifications on the official website and in our social media platforms. So she's a close-range Manicaster. Even though she's holding a blade, I guess she's mainly using the Manicaster there, and it is her younger portrait. Plans for this month. The Cursed Connections raid event will be followed by a Coliseum event. Nice! This event will be similar in style to Onslaught events and defensive battles, but it will give players the chance to test their might against Hinamoto's best fighters in gladiatorial combat. It's not all about conflict though, as players will also be able to learn more about the stories behind the various Hinamotoan competitors. Really, really cool. Coliseum events being added to the mix of Onslaught and defensive battles, I think, is a slam dunk. It's a really great idea. Right now, unfortunately, with the Onslaught events and defensive battles, they're definitely filler events, and it's clear. They don't have the high-end production value of the end-of-month events that are usually raid or facility events. And it's sad to say, but there was a time in Dragalia Lost when all of us were clamoring for defensive battles to be a permanent or regular mode, and once it was made into a permanent or regular mode every other month with defensive battles happening about that often, well, people really don't like it that much. Part of the reason for that is that no new maps were seemingly ever developed for defensive battles, and when we thought about it becoming a permanent mode, one of the big parts of the appeal was actually having original maps, original scenarios for what you're defending, and unfortunately that never was made manifest. Onslaught events, I feel like, are actually a little better than defensive events right now because they're sort of similarly mundane, but they also don't require a lot of grinding, and the dragon battles are kind of a fun gimmick to them, and again, it's mainly like they're pretty much exactly the same as the defensive events, but less grindy, because you don't have to sit through autoing a huge defensive map. Instead, you're just autoing a quick dragon battle, and you have the astral dragon battles that are pretty fun and give you a nice diversion to the event as a whole. Throwing in Coliseum events, I'm very hopeful. The reason I'm hopeful here is that they say they've assembled Hinamoto's best fighters, so this possibly means that it's not just going to be straight ports or rips of what was in the previous Coliseum event. Sure, some of the battles might be the same. We might have our battle against Ieyasu, Sazanka, and Addis. We might have some of the same characters show up. We might get Mitsuba to return along with an army of Pipple. Maybe they'll throw in Valerio just for good measure since he was there the first time. But even though in the first Coliseum event there were characters from Hinamoto present, there weren't that many, and the final waves were never really characters from Hinamoto. So the fact that they say it's best fighters in gladiatorial combat, I'm very optimistic. What I hope it's not is just a bunch of red shirt random enemies that have maybe been skinned to have more of a Hinamotoan appearance. That would be really unfortunate if it's just waves of like basically Imperial Onslaught except with samurai skin or ninja skin or something. I really hope that actual characters take part in this. Like, let us fight Ieyasu. Let us fight Yoshitsune. Why not? You know, Ieyasu was a boss character before. Addis and Sazanka, all of them are fair game. Yoshitsune, a boss character in the current raid event. So this has a lot of potential to me just because the Dragalia The Dragalia roster at this point is so huge. There's 200 plus characters, and several of them were implemented in Coliseum once before. So this could be a much more fresh mode, basically, is what I'm saying, than defensive battles or the onslaught events, just by virtue of rotating in whatever 5 characters are suited for the theme of a given event. Like, maybe next time it'll be like, it's the blacksmith Coliseum event, and you're fighting Lazri as well as Gald, as well as the 3 blacksmith sisters. Or maybe in the future we'll have a cooking themed event, and it'll be Vice and Mitsuba, Pipple, Valerio, who we've all fought before, but perhaps some other characters will be thrown in there as well for good measure. So basically, I just think that this has a lot of potential. With the Coliseum happening last year during the second Fire Emblem crossover, it's something that not a lot of players have experienced in my mind, and it was a really cool event. Different elements. Every element, basically, you have waves and you fight actual characters from the game. And it's not quite like the Battle Royale where the physics and the targeting feel kind of funny. It feels floaty, like you can't actually target what you're trying to. It felt pretty good and snappy. One thing I remember about the Coliseum, though, was the hit priority on enemies seemed to be really high. Like, enemies can just easily cancel and interrupt whatever you're trying to set up. Now we have dodge rolling. I don't think we had dodge rolling at the time. I can't really remember exactly when we got dodge rolling, though, so it's possible we had it, and I'm just misremembering. But yeah, this could be really fun. I'm excited about this. Mixing up this rotation of onslaught and defensive battles is a plus in my mind. Alright, after that, we have a high difficulty quest involving Morsayati being added in mid-January. Players who overcome this challenge will be able to earn materials for upgrading facilities that boost adventurers of certain elements or weapon types, and items that augment dragons. Yo, so this is like, is this a quest that you do repeatedly and it's in the Compendium? Or is this, yeah, I mean, it has Forgotten Truth's label, so I guess it's in the Compendium. Man, and it's like grindable? Or is it the first time you clear it, you get all these materials? Please note that this quest may not be attempted until you have viewed the epilogue for the Forgotten Truths event in the event Compendium. In addition, it has been designed to challenge teams of very high might, but is not quite as difficult as the legend difficulty of the Agito Uprising, nor does it require that only adventures of a specific element be used. Wow, so this is crazy to me. Endgame content sitting in the Compendium that's probably harder than Master, but easier than Legend? That's wild. Like, the fact that you get materials for upgrading facilities, normally in endgame quests, it takes several runs. You have to play repeatedly to get enough materials to upgrade facilities. So, when they even say multiple facilities and adventures of certain elements or weapon types, like, what is this going to be? Is it a precious item maybe that like lets you get your elemental altars up from level 40 to level 45? Is maybe that what this is? Like some kind of uncapping item, and that's why you would need to do this a few times? And same with the dojos. Like, I don't know, are there going to be brand new facilities? That is a big question mark with this. Dragon augments are huge. Dragon augments are still alive in the game, but there's only 10 HP augments right now, and we've never been told exactly how we'd get future augments. They removed weapon augments with the 2.0 update during the second anniversary, but one of the reasons dragon augments are potentially huge is that when it comes to dragons, if you match types with the character that you equip your dragon onto, then you get a 1.5 times multiplier on the stats provided by the dragon. That's why it's generally the case that you want to match elements with your dragon that you have equipped, but there are exceptions to this, and as the game has gone on longer and longer, the exceptions have grown more common, because in endgame content for healers and support characters, often the stats are less important than what skill the dragon has access to. This is why you see dragons like Popstar Siren and Gaunen Krenna be really popular on healers and support characters, even though they don't actually benefit the stats of the character they're equipped to very much. So all that to say, Dragon Augments, having a same element character with augments on it should give you more return on Dragon Augments than you get on regular augments that go on characters, adventurers or worm prints. So potentially this could be a significant stat bump. Who knows how quickly you'll be able to grind this up or farm this up? Like, will this have a weekly chest? It's just fascinating to me that this is spawning off of the event Compendium. I kind of hope it sits somewhere else so it's just more visible to players, but I know the players seeking out this challenge won't have a hard time finding it. It's just like, I would never have thought this would happen, but this is really cool. And this is something in the territory of like a Chthonius High Dragon Trial or a Nedric Agito battle that was almost the realm of fan fiction for me, of like, that would be cool. That would feel like it completes the cycle and be like a mystery hidden quest, the secret battle to end things off. This definitely feels right up that alley for me. Like, Morsayati deserves this level of high caliber battle. Really fun event, but who knows exactly what this will look like. Like, is this going to be our first 16 adventure endgame content? Will this actually retain the raid properties or not? Will this be, one adventure per player? Really have to wait and see on this, I think. But yeah, this is fascinating to me for sure. Who knows how much we'll actually have to play this, if it'll be one and done or a few times and done. But I'm looking forward to that one. Whoops, scrolled ahead a little too much. So now we have an interlude being added to Chapter 17 of the main campaign. Good, what we expected. I always like the interludes. They do tend to touch on some of the forgotten plot threads or missing characters. The scars of the Syndicate raid event will make a return in late January. You'll have a chance to add the adventurer Aldred to your team if you haven't already. Glad to see this one come back. I would like to see raid events continue to be recycled just because the characters are only available through them. Some of these characters are approaching the point where they're like the most limited in the game. Felicia, in particular, right now, it's really hard to get her unless you were playing at the exact time her event ran. It only ran once ever, and you see that with other characters in raid events as well. Aldred was around last year, but this was a good event, had its own original track. The main problem with this event was the raid boss, Aspidochilone. I think that's the name of it. It's like a light turtle, but it just got demolished. And it was a shame after Fraganoth, the boss that it's based off of, was actually one of the harder raid bosses. So Shadow was just really strong as an element. It still is a strong element, even though water has kind of crept up in regular play. But for raids, Shadow just destroyed that boss. I would like it if they rebalance it, honestly. They will probably add a harder difficulty of Omega, but even if they just rebalance the earlier battles, that would be kind of nice. I don't necessarily see that happening, but I do think we'll get the harder Omega fights, and it's a pretty good raid overall. It does have one of the lingering threads in the mythos of Dragalia Lost, I guess, about the Syndicate, this mysterious sort of villainous organization, and if you're not familiar with it, it's a nice story to read through. Okay, so after Scars of the Syndicate, the Accursed Archives facility event is being added to the event Compendium in late January. Honestly surprised this one hadn't been added yet. The story event during Shadows that kind of goes with this isn't present in there. Hopefully we do see story events in the Compendium at some point, because basically the raid events that they added are essentially like story events as far as the amount of content. There's actually more content in the raid events than there would be in story events, but I think that has given the template that you don't have to be a full-fledged event to go in the Compendium. It's just a good way to have extra stories available so players can catch up on them if they miss them. And after the Accursed Archives, we find out about the legend difficulty of Kaiyan's Wrath. So that is being added this month as well. As with Volk's Wrath Legend, this quest will prove quite challenging, so please look forward to pushing your top team to its limits. Love the purple eye look on Kaiyan there. I'm surprised to see this one come out. I thought it might have been Ciela. I was thinking that the next series of endgame fights would come out sooner than they are, and for that reason I thought they might change the element order of the legend difficulty release. But this seems to create a line that may lead into more of a trend that the legend difficulty will just be in the exact same order of release as the original Agito were released. So that would be Volk, Kaiyan, Ciela, Twins, and then Tartarus. We'll see if that pattern follows through, but for Kaiyan Legend difficulty, a lot of thoughts on how they can make it harder. For sure, I think the Dispel mechanics already were kind of really, I don't want to say overbearing, but like they're pretty stifling when you're playing this in solo on master difficulty, and even in co-op. If you ever go Dispel down against Kaiyan, you could be in real trouble. So they could definitely play up the shield that he has. Maybe you have to Dispel it 3 times in Legends. Another thing I could see them doing is messing with the battleground mechanics. Maybe the battleground can sort of change in shape and move around. Like sometimes the battleground will be on the outside versus the inside of the little ring. Speaking of rings, the golden ring mechanic is another one that is only in phase 1 of the fight normally, so you don't even see it on master. But that's when he spawns rings around each player and you can try stack them up, but often people will put them just so that somebody gets ricocheted in the middle. Adding more of those rings in the second half of the fight during difficult segments would also be a way to increase the difficulty of the fight for sure. They could just have more Supreme Spears happening at inconvenient times. Like, Kaiyan's kind of an annoying fight, to be honest. He has a lot of just really, I don't know, just the mechanics are, it feels like you have to kind of like get around a lot of tedious stuff. Unfortunately, like with Volk, there is some annoying stuff in phase 1 if you're soloing and you're not too familiar with it. Like, you can easily get tripped up by the shuriken and you'll die relatively quickly. In later phases, there's some difficult stuff as well. But with Kaiyan, it's like, there's a lot of checks. Like, can you bust out your characters out of his Crushing Cataclysm or not? Can you survive screen-wide AoEs? Do you have Dispel at the right moments that you need it? And I don't know, this could be a really fun one. For the masochists among us out there that just love Legend difficulty, using normal teams, not trying to cheese it, like, this is probably going to be exciting and fun, and I hope they make, I don't know, I'm trying to think about any kind of cool twist. Like the Blood Moon was kind of a cool twist with Volk. Berserk, of course, cool that Volk went into that form. I don't know if Kaiyan will go into Berserk or he'll have a different form. But I kind of think they'll just continue using the nomenclature and the effects of Berserk because they already developed Berserk and it's a little bit easier to do the same kind of treatment on every boss than do different treatments. Otherwise, thinking about Kaiyan, another thing I had considered was like, maybe when you Dispel him or something, like whatever you dispelled off of him becomes an affliction on you. So like, let's say you dispel a strength buff he had, then you get minus strength. Or like you dispel a shield he had, then, I don't know, you get extra damage done to you, which is kind of like the opposite of having a shield. That was something else I had considered, but yeah, this potentially could be a really restricted fight if you need tons and tons of dispel. So I kind of hope you don't. It would also be interesting if like every shield he had, you just have to brute force through. You can't dispel. That would be really brutal. Kaiyan is a character I expect to sort of see pop up in the story pretty soon here, with Luca seeming like he'll play a role relatively quickly, but Kaiyan hasn't really been in past chapters. He like showed up, he said a few things, but unlike Ciela and Volk, not really that developed of a character. Even the twins are more developed than Kaiyan, so I'm looking forward to just hearing more about his ideology and finding out a little bit more about this guy. Not my favorite Agito, but really does kind of a special place in my heart in the sense that this was when Agito really became a lot about autoing and soloing, which with Volk never seemed like a possibility, at least in the immediate term. Alright, so that's coming out. And for future updates, so these will probably be after January, or looks like some of them will be in January. But one of them is, as mentioned in last month's installment of This Month in Dragalia Lost, we'll be announcing further details about an upcoming event live in early January, so please stay tuned. Alright, so I'm just going to drop the pretense here about the possible collab. So if you don't want to know about any possible collab, this is your opportunity to walk away from the video. And yeah, there's some data mines that suggest this is true. And who knows, sometimes content gets scrapped. So just because that data exists doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pan out in exactly the way that is written into code. But all right, this is the last chance. The Persona collab, rumors, and data mine, I think that's what this is about. I think that our Persona collab is happening, and I think it'll probably be very end of January or early February, possibly mid-February, but as of now, usually there's always a month, a big event at the end of the month in Dragalia Lost. And I guess they're saying Scars of the Syndicate is late January, so maybe this month will not have its own event, since the New Year's raid happened on the 31st of December, and December didn't really have a big event. Maybe this will be a month where they skip having a brand new event. That actually seems more realistic, just because I can't really see them cramming Persona into late January into early February, like crossing it over. Right now, Persona's collabing with AFK Arena from what I've seen. Like, I've seen ads on my phone about this. They're everywhere in the mobile space. I would not be surprised at all if they come to Dragalia Lost. So I think that's happening. I think it's probably going to be February, and we should know soon, since it says that this will be announced live in early January. Maybe it'll be something else, but that's my expectation right now. They'll continue to regularly update the main campaign with new chapters, but starting with Chapter 18, these chapters will be split into 2 parts, each releasing monthly. Okay. Part 1 of Chapter 18 will be released in February, and Part 2 will be released in March. Chapters 19 and beyond will follow the schedule accordingly. As the prince navigates the unexplored lands to the north, he comes closer and closer to that which he has sought for so long. Cool. I'm happy about this. Don't know what that means for the interludes. Will the interlude type material be baked into these different parts? If so, that works out for me. I just mentioned earlier that I like kind of how the interludes shed a light away from the main action on some of the side characters and what they're up to. But splitting things into 2 parts seems like a reasonable solution. I hope that the parts are hearty in length. One of the issues with the way the story is presented in Dragalia is just that it takes so long between chapter releases that it's easy to forget what happened in the previous chapter and kind of lose track of where things are in the campaign. So maybe this will help alleviate that to an extent. After the campaign details, we find out more about the new bosses that are set to follow the Agito Uprising. Those will be released starting around March. So still a ways off. These bosses aren't just fresh new faces, they'll also bring fresh new gameplay mechanics to the table, so be sure to keep your skills sharp. Alright, a little bit further off than I was hoping on that. March is a ways away, but we're getting Legend Kaiyan this month. Next month we might get some type of filler like Time Attack for Kaiyan, in the same way we got Time Attack for Volk. I think Time Attack would be a good way to tide things over, given that it went pretty well this release. Way better than the first release, for sure. A little disappointed to see these are so far off, but I'm willing to wait, as it sounds like there's going to be a lot else to do in Dragalia Lost. Though it's a bit early to be discussing the next Dragalia Digest in detail, we do plan to continue using it to communicate major announcements every 6 months. The upcoming episode in late March, alright, so it's a ways off, will cover a special event. Here's a hint to tide you over. Players will be able to enjoy this event even more if they have played the main campaign and the Fractured Futures and Forgotten Truths raid events in the Compendium. Alright, so kind of to be expected for the half anniversary. We were already told last month that they're going to continue, either last month or maybe in one of the feedback sessions or the anniversary survey for players, that they do plan to continue having these milestone events that tie to the lore of Dragalia after they did both Fractured Futures and Forgotten Truths. And I think they even said that the next half anniversary milestone would have an event like this, so I think that's what we can expect here. In conclusion, I hope that the first installment of this month in Dragalia Lost for the year 2021 has helped you start it off right, and I, along with the rest of the team who worked so hard to bring the Dragalia Lost game to life, look forward to continuing our journey with you well into the year and beyond. In closing, we're giving all players the following items this month: 3 Sunlight Ore, 3 Damascus Crystal, 30 Exquisite Honey, and 10 million rupees. Really good way to start off the year. That was pretty fun reading through this month in Dragalia Lost. Some things like the new boss fights and the next digest a little bit further out than I would have expected, but it seems like there'll be plenty to tide us over in the month of January. Very curious about this Morsayati Reckoning, and looking forward to the Coliseum event probably as my highlight for this month. That is going to do it for today, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this look at this month in Dragalia Lost. Let me know what you're most excited about in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.